Okay, welcome back. It's good to know that you're still here with us. You're still watching the Idea Morning Digest, and it's time for the discussion segment. And we'll be talking about a sovereign warning, a sovereign global warning coming from the I think World Bank, if I'm not mistaken, and talking about the extreme poverty in 2030, why the world and Africa is failing behind. And of course, we have our senior in-house analyst here who has joined us to help us dissect this issue proper. And we at the United Nations, rather. Sorry, I said World Bank. The United Nations says the world is off track to end extreme poverty by 2030, which is a central promise under the Sustainable Development Goals. And according to the UN, about 808 million people are currently living in poverty, extreme poverty, in 2025, and that is roughly 1 in every 10 people worldwide. And if current trends continue, nearly 9% of the global population could still be trapped in extreme poverty by 2030. But here is what makes this particularly urgent for us in Africa. The poverty line has been updated to reflect today's economic realities, now defined as living on less than $3 per day in 2021, purchasing power parity. That means the measurement has changed, the cost of survival has changed, and in many cases, the depth of hardship is even more severe than older figures suggested. At the same time, global hunger has returned to the levels last seen in 2005. Food prices remain high across many countries, and nearly half of the world's population lacks any form of social protection. So this morning we're asking, what does this mean for Africa? And are we simply facing a poverty crisis or a structural transformation crisis? And more importantly, what must change between now and 2030? So let's unpack this. Engineer Chris, good morning. Welcome. I like to say Engineer Chris, but welcome. This is Chris Ejiofor. Good morning.
That's good.
Okay, so
welcome. And how are you?
Talking about, fine, thank you. Talking about, it's poverty again, so I'm not happy. When we talk about poverty in Africa, the image most people conjure up is rural villages, people with kwashiorkor, rather people with, some sort of sickness or sick-looking, malnutrition and all of those things, people working in small farms, children walking miles to school and limited access to water and electricity. But we have to understand the reality of poverty, the reality that often gets missed most of the time. Poverty in Africa is becoming a city problem. You come to Abuja, you come to Lagos, for instance, that Africa's largest city, let me even use it, with over 25 million people in its metropolitan area. You see all of these things. The city is booming. Yes, the city is booming. Businesses are going. People are moving here and here. But when you look at it very well, people cannot afford housing. People cannot afford to rent a house. The other day I was watching one of the news channels in Nigeria, and I saw that somebody was complaining that "If Face Me, I Face You" in Lagos is now 170 to 200,000. "If Face Me and I Face You" without bathroom, without toilet inside the house. So all of this cost of living is skyrocketing. Informal settlements are now, stretched like I want to say, like spider webs. I'm telling you, around the city, and many people who have jobs are still living from paycheck to paycheck. What do you make of this? What's this poverty talking in Nigeria? In Africa as a whole.
Yeah, it shows the level of the entire population sliding into a point where we call beyond poverty level. That's the case. It's not just Africa. It's mostly, but I think the entire third world countries, third countries, and except the major, what I would call the new world, that are more or less not facing as what we are seeing in Africa today, and the major part of other Asian countries and the rest. The problem, poverty level, is the sense that I think it is so more or less the socio-economic activities has fallen below standard. Government intervention, government can no longer forcefully take care of the entire, when it comes to housing, when it comes to food. And in the areas where we have climate changes have affected a lot of, in terms of output, produce output and the rest, climate changes and wars banditry and the rest, like what we're facing in Nigeria. Banditry has taken a toll on our farmers. Many of them cannot go to farm again. They feel like was in the market was 2 days ago. It's called that even if you look at the number, the fresh paper that are being wrapped, they are wrapped one more than the wrapped one. So which means like a hunger. People are not getting, once it's matured, they bring it out to the public for sale. So the idea is this, that at the government intervention, government has to intervene in a lot of things to reduce, ameliorate what nature has caused. Aside from nature, government intervention is to come in place when it comes to security, making sure that the farmers go into mechanized farming. And government itself because sadly, even why the developed world seems not to be in such problems is that because there's subsidy level. America subsidizes agriculture more than any other thing. Are we doing that in Nigeria? No. In the third world, yes, we are not doing. So in a sense, the government has to subsidize a lot of food agriculture and make sure that what the farmers produce, the excess of the produce, government buys it and stock in what they call a strategic reserve. Normally, countries go to their strategic reserve to fund food and their crisis when there's problem, when there's famine and the rest. Government brings out the food to leverage on that poverty line, making sure that nobody goes hunger. But it's called that here those things are open. That people can't go to farm due to banditry, kidnapping and the rest. That's insecurity. Then global warming and the rest, those ones are natural. They play a role in terms of not having enough food to sustain the poverty line we're talking about. So you see that the people and the countries slide into agriculture and extreme poverty based on when such things are lacking. Government intervention, nature has its own toll on it. So I think it's the government that will play the major role by making sure that you reduce what affects farmers and the rest, so that people can at least eat food properly.
Yes.
Before we talk about other things.
I mean, even if we look at, even though Kenya's GDP has grown steadily, with I think a significant proportion of urban residents live in what we call slums.
Slums, yes.
Take, I think, Kibera, one of those places in Kenya. Cost of living there is very unpredictable. People cannot get good jobs. People cannot, get even social services. Even the social services that are even available are running thin. So urban poverty, when we look at it, just like you have clearly pointed out, isn't just about not having money. It's more about instability. It's more about vulnerability. It's more about social tensions. And that brings me to the talk of conflict, because you mentioned climate, which is one driver of poverty, whether we like it or not. Well, okay, before I go to that how food inflation can interact or have been interacting with conflict, you mentioned something about structural reserves, which the government is, we should be a strategy, or they are already utilizing it, I don't know. Well, has Africa's economic growth model ever, over the last decades, talking of that structural reserves you're talking about, has that been structurally capable of reducing extreme poverty, or it has mainly just produced uneven gains?
Yes, before you have what they call a strategic reserve, like you mentioned, strategic reserve. If before you go into that, you must have excess production of food capacity from the citizen, or from either by government intervention or government assisting those in the agriculture sector. In a sense. So it's the excess food you produce goes to a national strategic reserve. In case of when you have famine or whatever, there's a shortfall in consumption of food. But before you do that, your farmers must be at work. At least 80% of your farmers must be at work. Even when it's government or private sector driven, must be fully at work. Now today we call Benue the food basket of the nation. Is there any yam still coming from Benue again? No. Is there any Niger State? Is one of the capital base of kidnapping and banditry now. Is the yam from Niger State still there again? No. So there's a shortfall when it comes to food production. I'm using Nigeria as a case study. Then what of Sudan and the rest? There has been war for more than 5 years.
Yes.
So what are you talking about? People, they hunger. Definitely there will be a slide into greater poverty level in such areas until Nigeria and Africa begin to think outside the box, making sure that their farming sector is either lucrative by other government intervention, and government assisting private sectors to drive food capacity. So,
I think still talking about conflict, because well, now UN updated the poverty line from $2.15 to $3 a day. That might sound like, it's just some little percent that was shifted, some little technical adjustments here and there. But if we look at it, it's actually very huge, because it tells us that millions of people we thought were just above the poverty level. We know in Nigeria, and in Africa, by extension, we, divide it. We have different classes. Yes, I don't know if that class exists, but we have the upper class, we have the middle and all. So it's more like if you are living in just above the poverty level, you are living on the edge, and you're still, at least you're hanging with that thin rope there. So if you're in the middle class, that means you're in the middle class and you are trying for yourself. Or sometimes in Nigeria we say, I'm from an average family. So I'm just looking at it. Imagine a household earning $2.20 a day. Yes, technically, if we look at it, how should I even put it? Technically not counted. It can technically not be counted as extreme poverty, but in reality, we have so many emergencies. We have miscellaneous. You have job loss. Anything can happen. We were just talking earlier on, myself and Mary, before we came into the studio, how uncertainties can happen, unprecedented, unprecedented times. So I want to ask, how does and you gave you cited a very good example with especially that is an unprecedented time with Benue State, some part of the north. How conflict can just come and erode a whole society. But how does inflation interact with conflict, especially when we're talking about let's even talk about conflict and also currency instability across African economies?
Yes, they are all interrelated. For example, when you talk about the GDP per capita, GDP per capita is based on certain indices, which comes when it comes to economic policies and how it affects human society. You understand? When we are talking about $2.3 to $3 you understand? Many people can't live even by that. All these are just an average UN benchmark. But then it has gone below that. So people cannot even see it. You know, it's covered that we are talking about the lower class, middle, and the upper class. It shows that the middle class has been eroded. That's not like middle class again. So it's either you fall into the poverty level or you are at higher level. The people at the higher level has already killed the middle class. So there's not like middle class again. And it's good that we have what we call extended family in Africa. Just like you said, things we never planned for can suddenly come up. So as the person has a problem, somebody has issues of operation, everybody's sharing about for money, and nobody can come to the rescue of such a person. It shows the level of how we have destroyed the middle class. The middle class no longer existing. So either you are in the extreme poverty line or you are there, which is the upper class. So that's the stage we are now. So all this is part of what we are facing currently in Africa, and the more or less the middle, the what we call the underdeveloped world. You know, so, but the UN, this is what UN is supposed to work along line with many of these countries that are facing this poverty level, because it's like what you're saying, it's part of the Asia, Africa, and the rest and South America that suffers this thing. But the Europe, more or less, and what we call the first world, and not even the basic things are there, which is like you mentioned, housing. Yes, housing costly now. People cannot even afford. Because even in Abuja here, it's the same thing. People are suffering now. Houses at Dubai here, because of house. So the same thing is just what we are saying about areas. The areas we have, they call what they call the slums. Like in Lagos, you have the Makoko now. Makoko was just recently destroyed in Lagos. People in Makoko now, where would they live? You understand? And the government is not providing housing per se. And most of the housing they are providing are just for the upper class. They will tell that it's a middle class, upper class housing, but you go there, it's either you are politically involved to have such an accommodation. Those who are in middle class go to the slum. So that's the basic thing. So it's all part of having good governance, then working for the interests of the people. Then we have to break the jinx between the poverty line, which they are not doing now. So I think the UN should be able to put a benchmark and come to the aid of countries that have issue of extreme poverty. Another by assisting them agriculturally and making sure that issue of crisis spotted areas come there, make sure that, like now we're talking about, for example, Iran and America. If UN cannot stop such wars in Assam, it's because at the end of the day, it's people that suffers at the end of the day, not the people fighting the war. Or because most of the people who fought war are not the lower class, and people are the high class that do all these things, that they generate issues like this in Assam. So at the end of the day, nipping the crisis in the bud before it comes up is what UN should do, and making sure they intervene when it comes to agriculture, to making sure that country thrives. At least they should be able to eliminate poverty in major parts of the world. And that's where you say, yes, UN actually is doing the job.
But the UN, I mean, you said it well, but the UN have, I think they proposed that 80% of social protection measures in Africa have been temporary, and I think they proposed a social protection measure instead of a structural reform, because to them, I think from what I read, some research I read one time, to them the structural reform is more reactive. So we are now looking at preventive rather. Also reactive. It is when we see a report or something, that's when we jump into and say, oh, let's look at this data a little. But I think that's not surprising when UN tells notes that 80% of the social protection measures in Africa have been temporary. I think it is true to an extent, because that is not. It's not surprising when you think about the realities of African economies. We're seeing large informal sectors. We are seeing narrow tax bases. We are seeing governments being strapped of what do they call them, for cash. We are borrowing every now, and then. But the question I think we should be asking ourselves at this point in time is not, because you mentioned structural measures, yes, structural reserves and whatnot. But I'm asking this question: how do we make social protection permanent for permanent and universal? Because some countries like Rwanda have experimented with this. I think with more with more robust how should I put it, more robust system, more robust interventions, and it has been linked to social protection, to health and also educational outcomes. But most African countries are still reactive, like I mentioned earlier. They're only responding to crisis rather than designating structural safety nets for them. But from my view, I just think, just like you said, governance is as much as as money.
Yes.
Just like you rightfully mentioned, governance, at the end of the day, all of our long talk is governance. Governance needs to be, we need fiscal discipline, we need transparency, we need that political will to sustain all of these programs. If not, we'll just be rolling out programs from now till tomorrow. But sir, let's think of the way forward in it. And they say the timeline, the deadline is 2030. So is this 2030 deadline still achievable, or should how should I put it? Should policymakers now shift focus from eradication to resilience building? What do you think works at this point in time?
I think just like you mentioned, what policymakers should do now is building up a resilience policies. The ideas that will intervene in terms of arming such areas we are mentioning. So, you discover that, like you rightly said, the rate of countries, the intervention, you said, is more or less a temporary intervention. I want to call it short-term interventions rather than long-term interventions, just like the UN mentioned. Short-term intervention because the economic policies are not working. And who dish out these such policies is the IMF, who is an organ of the UN and the rest. World Bank. You borrow money, African countries borrow money. The idea is to make sure that when you borrow money to African countries, and countries that need such money for economic intervention, you supervise the money you're giving out. And now how much Nigeria has borrowed so far in the last 2-3 years. And is IMF actually monitoring that such money go to the right areas? No. But rather than, it's called that such things are policies that, they met out policies that are not for the citizens, they are not good for the citizens, in a sense. Okay, you borrow money. Then IMF, rather than supervising, making sure that those monies are used for the people, so that you have a turn back when it comes to payment. Some of them have 50 years, some 80 years now. Some of the money they are borrowing, they're going to pay in 80 years. The borrowers now will not be alive there. then it means that you are mortgaging the life of the younger generation. You understand? So what we are talking about is that when they borrow money, IMF borrows money, or World Bank, or African Development Bank, make sure it provides such monies that they are used properly for economic intervention in different countries that borrow such money. And that is where it is. Then, say, mention 2030. Mention 2030, for me, is not visible. We have mentioned 2020 before. And today we are in 2025. And now talking 2030. The reason that they should start working towards making sure that such gaps are reduced rather than that give me a timeline. That such gaps are reduced and making sure that the government of all these countries intervene when it comes to economic policies that are people-driven rather than people in government. So make sure that people live proper life. Like you see a lot of things that comes along with such policies. Unemployment is there. Serious unemployment in most of the countries that suffers such things. Insecurity is there. You understand? And then people living below poverty because the economic sustenance has been broken. People can no longer live properly like human beings. So all these are areas where the United Nations, World Bank have to come in to rather than making sure that such things are nipped on the bud at when it comes to after having issues with the citizens, they should nip the such things in the bud at the beginning and end so that people don't have issues of economic timeline and poverty level. So that's the way out for it.
I mean, when you were talking, I just remember that even people with jobs are being pushed into poverty. Food prices are they're outpacing wages.
Yeah, exactly. So
I just think we need to do better with that because this problem is not just about, it's not a numbers problem. It's a reality problem. I was watching a podcast, one of those podcasts that's trending, and the debate about the current regime and how people are suffering. They were talking about how data does not translate to reality and all of those things. And somebody was still saying, how did they get the data if it's not, translated? People are out there on the
yes, and they are giving indices. Indices doesn't work again. So people are looking for food, not how indices and figures.
People are spending income, all the bulk of their income on food, because if you don't chop food, you don't survive. I mean, less for health. Look at sometimes you think of food before you even want to think about your health. You feel like if I chop rice now, but then let's look at. I like to look for solutions rather than just dwell on problems, because this report is more like a call to action for us to step up our game and see what we can do differently. So where my mind quickly ran to when I read it is what is the private sector in Africa doing? Because I know private sectors are doing a lot, contributing to the GDP of the country one way or the other. But what can private sector realistically do? What role can they play in poverty reduction beyond all of this? I know first of all they'll say they have corporate social responsibility. They have all of those things to cater for. Well, it's not enough. I'm currently carrying out a research on CES, that's the corporate social responsibility with telecom services. What they have been doing, has it been the reason why people are, maybe turning to Glo more than MTN or MTN more than Glo and all of those things. But during the course of my research, because I'm still on it, I noticed that corporate social responsibility is important, but it may not be enough on the large scale. So beyond corporate social responsibility, I'm talking about what we are talking about now. What can they realistically do?
Okay, you look at and we are talking about like corporate social responsibility. Because that government still remain the highest employer of labor as against the private sector. The private sector in other developed economies, that are growing economies, or economies that what they call developed economies, they are run purely by the private sector. Because the private sector has been more or less been engineered by the system to be the running sector for the economy. And it's got about 80% of the citizens have been employed by the private sector. And the private sector, private sector areas are more of engineer driven by a system that now in the government there's no bureaucracy in private sector. Yes, they're sufficient, and that's the bureaucracy ends with government. Then in private sector, driven, they hit their target and pursues it and make sure that the targets are more or less are yielding to whatever inputs that's put into other sector. So, and these are areas we are lacking in, mostly in Africa and the rest. It's more everybody like finish school now. Your first idea is that I'll be employed by the government rather than the private sector.
Before?
Yes, before. Not anymore. Now you're thinking to learn exactly. Whatever. But those ones pays you now, more or less. So it becomes an immediate employment of labor now. People driven. As an individual driven system, such that you are now thinking out of the box that what can you do for sustenance, rather than relying on the government, on the private sector. The private sector still comes in. So the only thing, the engine of driver of economy is always the private sector. So what we do now is to enhance our private sector. If there's any way there's policies that are not in tandem with private sector sustenance, government should cut it. Because whereby you're talking about MTN. Non-mobile, Airtel, all of them, they are increasing their tariff.
Yes.
Why? Because of government policies. So if government policies are not favorable to private sector, how would private sector becomes the engine driven by of economic policies? So you must make sure that when you have the people at heart, as people in government, you must make sure that the private sector thrives. Release policies that will drive the private sector without any hindrance, and making sure that, because every private sector is there to make money. Definitely they'll make their money, they'll make their profit, but not us against what will affect the citizenry. So that's the problem of private sector driven economy, and the government must make policies that are sustainable for the private sector to thrive.
Okay, it's very well said, sir. If I can pick anything, or if I have picked anything from what you've said, it's still about sustainability. We should think about how we can bring reforms that will be sustainable. Very important, sustainable, long-term sustainability. Not just, even if we do short-term, share rights to the cheapest.
Tomorrow we share.
Tomorrow, no, as you are sharing rights, we're thinking of the long-term. Let people need to weigh their conscience first. Well, thank you very much, sir.
I appreciate
yes, we always appreciate you being here. Yes, that is what we can take for the discussion segment. But up next, we will be seeing what's trending. Like I always say, my favorite part of the show. Stay with us.
Why is IDEA TV the premier African innovation television?
Africa's scientific, technological, and entrepreneurial progress and challenges have not always been narrated from within due to financial, leadership, coordination, and capacity challenges, as well as overdependence on external aid.
IDEA stands for Innovation, Development, and Entrepreneurship in Africa.
IDEA TV shares and creates awareness about the activities, progress, challenges, and opportunity institutions, researchers, students, innovators, entrepreneurs, and policymakers, and how they contribute to development.
We promote STEM education, bring science to society, address formal and informal sector innovations, and address unique African developmental issues. We partner with local and global institutions and communities, public and private sectors, NGOs, and donors driving innovation in Africa. We communicate ideas. Our impact? We make evidence and innovation outcomes understandable, useful, and accessible to society. We translate questions, findings, and evidence into stories for communities and policymakers to understand and use. We build capacity for science journalism and innovation in general. Our work facilitates policy around science, technology, and societal. We help to advance knowledge.
Okay, welcome back. You're still watching the Idea Morning Digest, and we're back with what's trending. And of course, we have our own, our own black diamond.
Exactly.
Yes, let me call you that.
I think I like that.
Joining us this
Good
morning. That's
morning.
going to be here. I'm fond of giving people.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us today.
Yes.
What's trending this morning?
Many things, really. Many things are trending. But then, how are you, Mrs. Mary?
I'm fine.
Mrs. Mary.
Today is Mary.
Okay, just Mary, plain.
Yes.
All right. Okay, let's now begin what's trending. A viral video circulating today has raised questions about the purity of popular bottled water brands in Nigeria after testing them with a total dissolved solid metal. The device showed higher mineral readings for brands including Eva and Seaway, prompting concern among consumers online. The video claims have been challenged by industry standards. Nigeria's regulatory limits for dissolved solids in drinking water is 500 parts per million, as set by the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, and the Nigerian Industrial Standard 554, 2015. The brands shown in the video remain well below that threshold. Okay, experts note that the total dissolved solid metals measure minerals such as calcium and magnesium, which can improve taste and offer health benefits, but they do not detect bacteria or harmful contaminants. Manufacturers of the affected brands maintain that their products are approved by the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control following comprehensive laboratory testing. Authorities advise consumers to purchase sealed products from trusted retailers, stressing that the viral demonstrations do not replace certified safety assessment. Well, bottled water trended today, and I think it's still trending.
It is still trending.
Bottled water made it to the headline today, but then according to what we just read, we see that the TDS is not used to measure bacteria, but rather it is used to measure the amount of minerals that the water contains. And come to think of it, the approved amounts of this minerals that is approved by NAFDAC is 500 parts per million, and then it is not up to that amount, it is not above that amount. So I don't really get the reason why this is troubling. I don't know why people are just panicking about it. But then what do you think, Miss Cynthia? Do you really think that this is about water per se, or do you see public distrust? Do you see do you think they are just panicking, or the panic is just unnecessary? Because being that this stuff, the TDS, is not something that you use to measure bacteria. So I'm wondering why the panic, really.
First of all, context here really matters. People have to know what TDS means, and that's total. I had to check that. Total dissolved solids meter, or TDS for short, meter, to check the creator of that video used it to check some popular water brands. And now, if you are not familiar with TDS meter, basically it measures the concentration of minerals, just like you said, like calcium, magnesium, sodium, and all of those things, potassium, just to put it out there so people can get
Understand,
the context
yes.
of what we're talking about. It doesn't detect bacteria, it doesn't detect viruses or chemical toxins, but the numbers shown in that video were higher than what people expected.
Okay.
I don't know if they, well, they have
They
science
said
students
below.
out there, so, but which, it's naturally made viewers very concerned about safety. But here's where the main context really matters. Nigeria's regulatory framework under NAFDAC, like it was mentioned there, what's the number they call it?
500.
554 2015. I think that sets a limit of like 500 parts of per million of dissolved solid, as it is stated here. And the brands in this video are still well below that. In fact, a TDS reading between 100 to like 300, if I can remember. I did small science in school of this thing, is considered ideal for test. Even it's considered ideal for how should I call it, for taste, rather, not test, I mean for taste, and even provides some health benefits as well, like it supports health, supports our bones, supports our eyesight, supports some, especially like magnesium and calcium that supports our bone. But the thing that is very particular here is the psychology rather behind it. When people see numbers like this in gadgets, and they immediately assume there is danger.
It's high, yes.
And there's a problem, especially with something essential as water. But what this video really highlights is consumer curiosity and mistrust.
Exactly.
So it is important for the brands that were mentioned to come out and
explain,
verify this, clarify the public, re-explain, and say, oh, this is what this means. This person may not be too sure. I don't know the person's motive behind that. But education is very important. They can come out now, and I know it is always written in bottles, but not too many people will understand all of those
scientific literacy,
scientific terminology. So we understand. So we have to. I think this is the time we have to start breaking things, down, so people can understand. People want transparency. People want to know what's in what they are consuming. Thank you, Mary. Manufacturers are saying, oh yes, our products are tested, they are approved. You're just coming out to tell people their products are tested. It's word of mouth.
Exactly.
It's not proven. So you come out and tell people and say, oh, this is what this water contains. And when it contains this is what it means. That's why I have to re-explain TDS so people can understand what TDS means,
it's all about,
what it is used to test, all of those things. And I'll say it's fine to question, it's fine to raise questions, it's fine to ask different questions, but viral videos are not laboratory grade, testing ground. They're not laboratory grade evidence. So we can't hold on to that for a fact. And this is a moment to remind viewers, to remind audience, to remind people out there that it is important to go and do your research too. After you see, good thing that this video is coming out. So this video is on the good side and the bad side. Good thing that this video is coming out. I think it has brought to people's awareness that, water contains calcium. Water contains some minerals that we need for our bodies, because people thought water is just to satisfy taste.
Colorless, tasteless, odorless.
Then that's when it will come to your mind. You start asking yourself some questions like, why is it that some water tastes bad?
Yes.
Some water tastes salty. Some water tastes some type of way, Why is it that water gets spoiled? So all of these things are what should come to our mind. This is where, audience needs to, it's not, the manufacturers of these products needs to come out. It's not to just seal bottle and say approved, tested, trusted. This, how am I going to trust? It is sealed, it is trusted, it is approved, but is it trusted?
Affordable.
It's affordable, but is it trusted?
Is it trusted?
So that's what we want to, know. And kudos to NAFDAC to come out and, do their own bits too.
Exactly. So Mary, do you have anything to say?
It's actually a call to action to the brand that have been called out already, and it's actually an educative video as much as it's a disturbing video too. Because a lot of people will be like, okay, what are we actually battling with in this country? We're trying to solve this, and this is coming out. Oh, so the water, people will be like, the water we're drinking seeds. What about us that drinks borehole water? What do we make of it and all that?
Everywhere.
But this is actually an educative video because a lot of people will take it seriously, and for us that do not even check the water we're drinking, we just take our bottled water and we drink.
You don't go up and down.
Yes, exactly. So this would actually make us very, very careful. You're buying your water, you're checking everything you need to check
Details.
before. You're checking the details before you consume. It's actually a nice one, actually.
Okay. Let's see the next story. Nigeria's Minister of Works, David Umahi, has dismissed allegations of sexual harassment and financial misconduct made by businesswoman Tracy Nicholas Ohiri. Speaking today, the minister denied claims that he pursued her for 12 years and withheld hundreds of millions of naira allegedly owed for campaign material supplied in 2015. Ohari had accused the minister of refusing to pay for services rendered during a past political campaign, alleging that the situation left her in financial distress. Umahi rejected the allegations outright, insisting he owes no one and stating there is nothing wrong with expressing interest in a woman. Yes, of course. Now, the disputes escalated yesterday when Ohiri was arrested on defamation charges and later granted 1 million naira bail amid tense courtroom proceedings. Senator Natasha Kotsi Udwangan has since called for dialogue as the matter continues to generate public reaction. Well, let's take a look at this video.
I want to thank a lot of you who know me very well, party chairman. I owed nobody. And of course, I presided over both men and women, and nobody ever said, I harassed him or I owed him. Deputy governor, the same. Governor for 8 years, and I did fantastic infrastructure. So nobody could come and say, "Oh, it's being owed," unless the person is being checked. So what you read on social media, I'm not worried about it. It makes me stronger. And I've fought many battles. So this is nothing. There's nothing wrong to say, oh, you are chasing a woman. But if it is Natasha that is accusing me of chasing her, then my face will be bolder. But not anyhow person that will accuse this handsome man of chasing him for 12 years. That person must be the Queen of England.
Okay, so saying, this is an allegation against the Minister of Works, David Umahi, by a business woman. Well, in this story, I don't really see why the things are not going the way it is supposed to go. Somebody is accusing you of something that has happened so many years ago. I think the first thing that should be done is proper investigation, first of all, before deciding to arrest the accuser, just like that. Someone was accused and the person has come out to, deny the claim that I did not do this, I'm not owing you. And of course, we know that it is not a crime to express your feelings to a woman, we understand. But then this is a serious accusation, and it tells how either these accusations are false or true. It tells how accusations can actually fly all over very quickly, and it can really damage one's image if these accusations are false. Okay, but then what do you think? What do you think, Miss Cynthia? Because I honestly think they should be properly investigated. These issues like this should be properly investigated before arresting the accuser, because it brings so many questions about human rights to freedom, rights to freedom of speech, and all of that. So what do you think?
First of all, I'm smiling because a high political figure is involved there. So when you talk about investigations, that's why I'm laughing.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I'm just looking at investigation.
But nobody's above the law.
Investigation with question mark.
Nobody's above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
Exactly.
I'm not denying that fact. I say investigation with question mark. Okay, but now I think here is what I think I make of it. These allegations cover two different aspects to me, because we are seeing gender dynamics playing there. We are seeing some sort of I don't know how to put it. We are seeing sexual harassment and financial disputes come to play here. First of all, it started off with financial dispute. She calling him to pay money for services she rendered as a vendor in one of their political campaigns one time or something like that. And then that's why it just what's just I just see here, and he came out to deny everything. And you can come out. His response was very clear and forceful. He came out, he denied everything, and that's his own stance there. But then we are seeing how all of these allegations intersect with, you know, like I started off saying, gender dynamics in business. Women most of the time who provide all of these services to political figures or high, especially in political campaigns. First off, most of the time it has been said allegedly that some of them get these contracts through some of these sexual, how do they call them? Sexual how would they put them?
Get what you want and by giving what you have.
Yeah, get what you want, give you yes in a more colloquial term. But then, when people will think of it from that angle and say, oh, how did you get the gig in the first the contract in the first place? So, and like I said, allegedly it has been said that women who used to provide campaign these things, who used to do vendors for campaigns, we got it through those means and yes. And on another hand, there are some people who, because I've witnessed these things, which I think with people that provide what do they call them, ushering job services. Yes, they are like sometimes they get disrespected. They do not get compensated. Sometimes even people that provide drinks and all those things for their campaigns, they always say they do not get compensated for their services. But if you are a man, you'll be treated differently. That's what they always say. I remember I was speaking to my sister yesterday, and there was something we were talking about writing and all of those things, offering writing services, and she was like, "Oh, we're talking about pricing," and she mentioned that too, and said if you were a man, they would have priced you. They won't price you lower.
Okay.
If you tell them 400 million, they will tell you no problem. But if you're a woman, they'll be like, oh. They'll just play on your soft power and all of those things. So I think the situation is tense because it involves money, it involves power, it involves personal reputations too. Because on another hand, this is kind of the public now is not the courtroom for most of this kind of dramas.
Exactly.
So Ohiri was arrested for defamation and later granted 1 million debt. Right? Umahi is trying to clear his name too. That's why I say investigation with who was arrested. Were the two of them arrested?
The woman.
One person was arrested. That's why I say investigation with question mark and in quotes too. So this number might seem like first of all, this is a serious allegation. Let me even put it that way. So I think even Senator Natasha have come out to say there should be a discussion. There should be a dialogue, and it is interesting to see that because it signals a recognition that this dispute isn't just legal any longer. We're not just talking about the legal implications of it. We're talking about public perception too, because public perception matters because this is a political figure.
Yeah.
David Umahi is a political figure. So we're talking about reputation here, and one that can affect political credibility, affect people's trust on his regime, on his leadership. So I think it is very right that he has, taken took her to the police and all that and whatnot. But I'm saying somebody came with an allegation. Very right for you to say they should investigate, but one person was, arrested
at the end of
so I don't have anything yet. Let's find the resolution. I think the resolution should go beyond court matters at this point in time. To me, that's what I just think.
Yes. What can you say? Do you think that harassment, the way it is being handled, do you think that is the proper way?
It wasn't handled rightly to me, in my own sincere opinion, because someone came out to cry out just like Cynthia have explained, and at the end of the day, it was just one person that was arrested. I was expecting this other person would have come in for more questioning. At least you will not wake up one morning and make such a huge allegation on him. And secondly, she should start bringing out that evidence, even if I know that the justice system of Nigeria is standing on one leg. But in as much as that is happening, she should try and bring out her evidence too to back up the accusation. Because at the end of the day, we don't want things to fall back at her. And social media is a place where people come out to cry most times, and at the end of the day, other cries will not. Yes, and something. Thank you very much. So that has been happening, and social media is a community where we now have a lot of judge and a lot of things going on there. And you can see during the time she was arrested, people came out for her. People, turned out for her massively, because it's now a system where we need clear justice and transparency, and I believe that the government would look into it and do the right thing and take the right decision at the end of the day.
Well said. Now let's move to the last story we have. A Nigerian journalist, David Hundeyin, has claimed in a recent podcast that the United States Central Intelligence Agency was responsible for the death of former head of state Sani Abacha. The allegation, which surfaced online today, is now trending across social media platforms. Hundeyin dismissed long-standing accounts that Abacha died of a heart attack on June 8, 1998. That's a very long time ago. And questioned the absence of an autopsy and the speed of his burial. He suggested the circumstances point to a possible cover-up, arguing that Nigeria lacked full sovereignty at the time under Abacha's military rule. However, there is no evidence supporting the claim. You see what we're talking about? Evidence. Historical reports had cited existing health concerns, including liver complications prior to Abacha's death. Critics have also challenged the allegation, describing it as speculative and unproven, as debate continues over Abacha's controversial legacy. Well.
Why is this surfacing now?
Seriously, and since 1998. Well, I don't think they've not given birth to me then.
But I think we should be familiar with our history.
Yes, we know Abacha to be a very controversial figure, a very big figure. Yes, so
controversies that.
So yes, exactly. It's good to know about history. It's good to ask questions about history. But then this involves an international intelligence. I mean, it's something that you shouldn't just come out and say without much evidence, without much proof. Because when it comes to things about things that are not here in Nigeria, things that the people out there don't joke. Companies out there don't joke with their name and all that. So I just think this whole issue should be well, regulated. Let it be well carried out. Let us be sure of what we are saying. Let us be sure of what we are putting out there to people. And then the fact that things just come out and start trending all over social media, things are no longer done the way it's supposed to be. Okay, now this allegation was made by a journalist during a podcast, okay? And then a renowned one for that matter. So, and it is a very, very serious threat. We know that when somebody just lose his life all of a sudden, there have to be autopsy. There was no autopsy carried out. So it raises serious speculations, serious suspicion about the deaths of this person. You said it was health issue, probably liver problem and all that. Is there a medical report about it that's okay, this is what actually killed this person? But then, let's hear what you have to say about it.
I think this claim is very huge.
It's very huge.
And then, he's fearless. So he's fearless with his own type of reporting, but I think this claim is very huge, and especially considering Abacha ruled Nigeria under a military dictatorship.
Exactly.
Considering that fact, he was wealthy. He had very opaque governance style. But I would say this allegation, whether true or not, I think it's part of the larger conversation about Nigeria's history and foreign influence. And Abacha, first of all, Abacha is how should I even put it? Abacha died supposedly of a heart attack.
That was the reports we got.
Yes, he ate an apple or something or so, but there was never an autopsy, and his burial was unusually very...
It was just too quick.
Fast.
Yes.
But it was fast. What's our business if it was fast? He's a Muslim.
Okay.
And Muslims don't wait. They bury... Immediately somebody dies, they bury you. That's their own way. So I think that alone leaves a room for speculation for so many people. People are speculating, people are saying a lot of things. Ondayin is leveraging. I think that is the gap that Ondayin is leveraging. That this is what happened. It was fast, it was not fast, but I'm not seeing it from that point of view. And it's also suggesting possible covert intervention, which is a narrative that sort of resonates because Nigeria was at that time under intense international scrutiny for human rights abuse and corruption because Abacha's governance type was brutal. So critics will all call this speculative, and they are right to call it so because there is no concrete evidence publicly available. But from my own point of view, I think this captures the imagination of public in the sense that they are sort of forced to revisit history again, and revisit historical events critically. Because when I saw this morning, I already started searching some certain things. Not like I really want to know why Abacha, what really killed him. He's dead. I mean, the dead have no business with the living. Sorry to say that, I don't know. But it also touches on trust, on all of those official narratives because people remember you for what you live. Exactly. I'm just saying this from the general point. I'm seeing this from the general point of view. People remember you for what you live for. I remember when President Buhari died. People started, he trended. Even he made Google's list of what trended in 2025. And why did he trend? People were revisiting his regime, his leadership style, and all of those things. And so I just feel like this is more like bringing all of those things back. We should speculate about history more than even what killed him. I know what killed him can come to play to to understand our history and all of those things. But at the end of the day, he's dead and gone. And I'll frame it this way. It's worth talking about, I know. It's worth questioning historical gaps. But don't treat online claims as true, though.
Exactly.
Let us have that
until
in mind.
It is confirmed.
Investigative journalism, I am an investigative journalist. Most of the time, they thrive on, pushing boundaries.
Yes.
They thrive on pushing all of those, pushing a certain narrative. Not like it's not for, all mustn't be for good. Not like some are not substantial to an extent, but we must all I'm just saying is that we must maintain healthy skepticism while staying informed about historical context, because these days we have many self-acclaimed journalists. But Ondayin, I know he's a journalist, a renowned one, but we should just be careful of what goes around online, because with this now, people will start, because I've been watching different videos. I used to see videos of people there are some content creators who come out to analyze things that has happened in the past so people can get better understanding. Before you know now, everybody will come with their own views, opinions, and their own research. And you see, you can search something on the internet, and then you come back and search it again. You see a different answer.
Exactly.
You can search something on Google. You search it on Firefox. You search it on maybe ChatGPT. You use Gemini or you use Cloud. They will give you 3 different answers. So we should just be careful of, somebody is there to stay there.
Exactly.
Let's focus on what we should focus on.
Exactly.
Because we're having a lot of distractions online. I don't know whether this is cloud chasing or I don't know what to call it, but anybody that is coming with this right now, as he's coming out with this, he should also come out with evidence to actually back up the claims.
I like that you're particular about evidence.
To actually back up the claims so that we can move forward. The argument online will not be massive and then distractible from what they're supposed to focus on, because social media space these days, anything that
be hungry by 2030,
I'm telling you, anything that is trending is what people are buying into, and you see them distracted, focusing on one thing. Everybody will start bringing up different, videos and a lot of distractions. So we don't need
seeing so many things.
Yes, seeing so many things. Let's focus on what we should focus on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mary said we should focus on what we should focus on.
Alright, so that's the much we can take for what's trending. Chidera, thank you very much too.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes, into the light.
I'll be here.
Into social media. Let's see.
I'll be here same time tomorrow.
Alright. The way she said it should be here same time tomorrow.
Is it for me?
It's like this internet. But yes, Chidera, we'll have you tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.
All
Yes,
right,
that's the
thank
much we
you.
can take from on what's trending today. Let's see the weather reports.